The stars were different that night. Ellen always found peace in the sky, the familiar pinpricks of light that guided her thoughts. She was staring up from her apartment balcony, a cup of hot tea in her hands, when everything went wrong. At first, it was just a flash, bright and too fast to register. Then, a sound, like the earth itself had cracked open, a deafening hum that rattled the air. Before Ellen could react, the world around her blurred, her vision swirling as if caught in a tornado of light and sound. The next thing she knew, she was lying on the ground, her body bruised and stiff, the taste of dirt in her mouth. Panic surged through her as she sat up, eyes darting around. She wasn't on Earth anymore. The sky above was an unfamiliar shade of purple, swirling clouds moving in strange patterns as if they were alive. The air tasted different, heavier, thicker. The ground beneath her was solid but seemed to ripple, as if alive. Ellen scrambled to her feet, her heart racing. The surroundings were nothing like her apartment, nothing like her city. And she wasn't alone. Across from her stood a figure, a humanoid shape, tall, impossibly thin, draped in shimmering fabric that seemed to shimmer in and out of reality itself. It had no eyes. Its face was a smooth surface, a pale reflection of the sky above. "Where am I?" Ellen's voice was hoarse, her throat dry. The creature tilted its head, its face still featureless. It spoke, but not in words. A thought entered her mind, alien and invasive, like it was echoing inside her skull. "You are on Exel, Theris. You are part of the experiment." Ellen's breath caught in her throat. Experiment? Her mind struggled to process what was happening. She tried to stand, her legs unsteady beneath her, but her body felt different. Not just the strange gravity pulling at her bones, but something more. Something deep inside her, stirring to life. The alien gestured, and the ground beneath Ellen shifted, forming into a jagged stone path that led into the distance. Behind the figure, a massive structure loomed, twisted metal and stone, as though the landscape itself had grown it from the depths of the planet's core. "Wait!" Ellen tried to shout, but her voice came out weak, barely audible. "What do you mean, experiment?" The figure made no response, but the thought once again echoed in her mind. "You will adapt. You will evolve. All will be tested. The results are inevitable." A wave of dizziness washed over Ellen, and she staggered back. The last thing she saw before she lost consciousness was the alien's cold, emotionless face. When Ellen awoke, she found herself in a different place, much like the first. The air was denser here, and her surroundings had shifted once more. The sky was now a sickly yellow, and the ground beneath her feet felt like a soft, spongy material that rippled with every step. As she slowly stood, her mind raced with questions, but there were no answers, only the gnawing fear that something inside her was beginning to change. Behind her, a door opened with a mechanical hiss, and a human figure stumbled out, disoriented like she had been. It was another person, someone she didn't recognize. "Where are we?" The man gasped, his voice cracking. "What's happening?" Ellen could only shake her head, her mind racing. They were not alone, and they were not safe. As the two of them exchanged confused glances, the ground around them suddenly trembled, and the air grew warmer. The sky above shifted again, the clouds turning a fiery red. In an instant, the temperature began to rise, the heat unbearable. Ellen felt sweat pricking at her skin, and she stumbled forward, her head spinning. The man next to her staggered and collapsed, his body writhing in agony as if the very air was burning him from the inside. Ellen could hear the sound of his bones snapping, his body twisting in unnatural ways. She could barely breathe through the oppressive heat, but then something strange happened. Her vision sharpened, her mind seemed to stretch, expand. She felt a connection to the environment, as if she could feel the molecules in the air, the temperature shifting. Without thinking, she raised her hand, and before her eyes, the temperature began to drop. The man, still convulsing on the ground, began to slow his writhing as the air around him cooled. Ellen didn't know how she was doing it, but she felt an undeniable power flowing through her. The temperature stabilized, and the man lay still, gasping for breath. "You saved me," he whispered, staring up at her with wide eyes. Ellen's heart pounded in her chest, the realization dawning on her. She hadn't just adapted to the environment, she had changed it. And as she looked around, at the alien sky, at the strange, alien structures rising around them, she knew this was only the beginning. She wasn't just a test subject. She was something more. The question now was, what would she become? And, more importantly, what would she do with this new power? The alien figure reappeared in the distance, floating above the ground, its expression unreadable. As if sensing her thoughts, it spoke again, not with words, but with that cold, intrusive presence in her mind. "Adapt, evolve, it has begun." Ellen clenched her fists, feeling the strange energy pulse within her. There was no turning back now. She was a part of their experiment, but perhaps she could become something else. Something that didn't need to be tested. And maybe, just maybe, she could find a way out. But she wasn't alone. There were others, and they would need to decide. Would they fight for freedom, or would they join the terraformers and their mysterious quest to remake the universe? The journey had only just begun. The days, or perhaps it was weeks, Ellen had lost track of time, blurred together in the strange, ever-changing landscape of Exel, Theris. The planet's environment was like a living organism, constantly shifting and changing as if it were a test in itself. Each day brought a new trial, a new environmental adjustment designed to push their limits and force them to adapt. The terraformers, whoever they were relentless in their pursuit of evolution. And yet, Ellen couldn't help but wonder if they weren't testing more than just the humans. They were testing themselves as well. The ground beneath their feet was constantly shifting, as though the planet was trying to evolve with them. Some days, it felt like walking on water, smooth, liquid, and disorienting. On other days, the soil was as hard as stone, cracking and breaking underfoot. Each shift was a reminder that they were in a place where nature itself was controlled, manipulated, even weaponized. The terraformers had set the stage, but the humans, Ellen and the others, were the players. The man who had collapsed in front of her that first day, his name was Adam, had become her only companion. Together, they had survived the strange alterations of the planet's atmosphere, intense heat waves, freezing cold snaps, and winds that howled through the air like banshees. They'd seen others struggle and fail, their bodies unable to adapt to the ever-changing environments. Some had died, some had simply vanished. "I don't think I can take much more of this," Adam said one evening, his voice hoarse from the dry air. He was sitting against a massive alien structure, its black, shimmering surface reflecting the harsh light of the red sun. "This place, it's too much, too alien. I don't even recognize myself anymore." Ellen looked at him, her eyes scanning the landscape. The sky was shifting again, turning a murky green, as though warning them of something terrible. The ground under their feet pulsed with energy, as if the planet itself had a heartbeat. "I know," she said quietly. "But we can't stop now. Whatever this place is, whatever they're doing to us, we have to keep going. We have to figure out what they want." Adam's eyes met hers, a mixture of fear and disbelief in his gaze. "Do you really think there's a way out of here? These terraformers, they're not like us. We're nothing more than experiments to them." The thought weighed heavily on Ellen's mind, but there was something else stirring inside her, a growing sense that there was more to this than just survival. That power she had felt within herself, the way she had altered the temperature that day when Adam had been on the brink of death, she couldn't deny it anymore. She was changing, and she wasn't the only one. As the days passed, Ellen began to notice other shifts in herself. The air was thick with energy, and every time she felt fear, anger, or even calmness, the environment around her seemed to react. When she was angry, the winds would whip into violent gusts. When she was calm, the temperature would stabilize, and the ground would soften beneath her feet. It wasn't just the environment changing, it was her that was changing the environment. One evening, As the sky turned a deep purple and the ground vibrated beneath them, Ellen's pulse quickened. A low hum filled the air, and a strange sensation surged through her, like an electric current racing through her veins. She clenched her fists, feeling the power rise within her, and before she could stop herself, the very ground beneath their feet began to shift. The dirt rose up in spirals, twisting and curling like a vortex. Adam jumped back, his eyes wide with fear. "Ellen," he shouted, "what are you doing?" But Ellen couldn't explain it. She didn't know what was happening, but it felt like she was finally tapping into something deeper than herself. The planet was alive. Alive in a way she had never imagined. And now, she was part of it. As the ground twisted and churned, a voice echoed in her mind. The same cold, distant presence from the alien figure that had spoken to her before. "You are progressing faster than anticipated. The potential is greater than we thought." Ellen froze, her heart pounding. She knew that voice. It was one of the terraformers. But why was it speaking to her now? What did it mean by progressing faster? Before she could gather her thoughts, Adam grabbed her arm, his grip tight with panic. "We need to stop. Whatever you're doing, you need to stop it. This place, it's changing us. We can't trust it." Ellen shook her head, feeling a strange conflict rise inside her. She didn't want to hurt Adam. She didn't want to hurt anyone. But the more she fought it, the stronger the power inside her became. It was like the planet was calling to her, urging her to do something she didn't understand. "The test is near its completion," the voice in her mind continued, growing louder, more insistent. "You will see the truth soon. Your kind has potential beyond measure. You will reshape this world. And beyond it." Ellen closed her eyes, trying to block out the voice, but the weight of it pressed in on her, almost suffocating. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about change. She didn't know if the terraformers had planned for her to be this powerful, or if they had simply created something beyond their control. Either way, Ellen knew that she was no longer just a test subject. She was becoming something more, something different. "Ellen," Adam's voice was trembling now. "Please, whatever they're doing, we need to fight back. We need to escape before it's too late." But Ellen didn't know if they could escape. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that perhaps the only way out was to embrace what they were becoming. And just as the ground beneath them shifted again, this time with a violent jolt, she made her decision. She would fight, not for freedom, but for something else. She didn't know what yet, but she would find out. And maybe, just maybe, she would learn to control the power that was growing within her. The terraformers had their plan. But now, Ellen had hers. The voice in her mind echoed once more, as if reading her thoughts. "We will see. The next phase will determine everything." The days after Ellen's outburst were filled with unease. The planet's environment had grown even more unpredictable, as though the terraformers were monitoring her closely, testing the limits of her abilities. The energy pulsed through her with every breath, and the planet seemed to react accordingly, shifting in subtle, yet noticeable ways. As if the land itself had become attuned to her presence. Ellen, however, was no longer the same person who had first arrived on Exel, Theris. She could feel it deep within her bones. The way her senses had sharpened, the way her mind felt stretched, expanded. She was connected to the planet in a way that defied logic, and her powers were evolving. But so was her understanding of the terraformers. They were not simply observing her. They were manipulating her, pushing her toward something. Something greater, something terrifying. Adam, however, was not as comfortable with these changes. Though he had been the first to witness her power, the growing strength inside her frightened him more with each passing day. He could sense it. Ellen was slipping further away from the person she once was, and he didn't know if he could keep up with the person she was becoming. "I don't understand, Ellen," Adam said one evening, his voice heavy with concern as they sat together on a small rise of rock overlooking the alien landscape. The sky was a deep crimson now, a thick haze hanging in the air as if the atmosphere was shifting yet again. "You're changing. I can feel it, But how do you know they're not just using you? Controlling you? Ellen looked at him. Her eyes narrowed with both uncertainty and determination. She hadn't told Adam everything. About the voices in her head, about the deep connection she felt with the planet, but she couldn't deny it anymore. The terraformers weren't just watching them. They were guiding them, pushing them forward to become something beyond human. But what if that something was not worth becoming? I don't know what they want, Adam, Ellen admitted, her voice softer than usual. But I feel it. This power, it's not just for survival. It's like I'm meant to do something with it. The planet is reacting to me, and it's not just me. I can feel it happening to others, too. We're changing, Adam. Adam's brow furrowed, the fear in his eyes sharpening. You're not the only one. I've seen it, too. I've seen other people who are different. People who've started to control the environment, like you did. But I don't think it's a good thing, Ellen. It's too much. The terraformers, they've got a plan for us. And we're just pawns in it. Ellen's mind raced. She couldn't deny what Adam was saying. But a part of her, the part connected to Exel, Theris, disagreed. She could sense the vast potential lying in wait inside her, waiting to be fully unleashed. The terraformers may have had a plan, but now she had her own. I don't think they're just watching us anymore, Adam, she said, her voice gaining strength. I think they want us to join them. This is about more than us surviving. It's about evolving into something greater than what we were. I think they want to reshape the universe, and we have the power to help them do that. Adam shook his head, his expression pained. I don't want to become something like them. I don't care what they want. I want to go home. We need to find a way back to Earth. We need to fight back, Ellen. Ellen turned away, gazing at the shifting horizon, where the alien structures of Exel, Theris rose like jagged teeth against the sky. In the distance, she could see the terraformers, their forms now taking on a more corporeal shape, tall, imposing, their features still hidden beneath reflective cloaks. They moved as one, silent and purposeful, as though they were preparing for something momentous. Is this truly what you want, Ellen? The voice, cold, distant, and powerful, cut through her thoughts like a blade. It was the terraformers again, speaking to her directly, bypassing her senses and reaching into her mind with ease. You have come so far. You have evolved beyond what we expected. But there is more. The Nexus awaits. You will be the key to unlocking the future of the universe. Do you understand now? Ellen closed her eyes, her head pounding with the intensity of the message. The Nexus. The word felt heavy with meaning, its weight settling on her chest. It was like a door was opening in her mind, showing her a path she couldn't see before. The terraformers wanted her to lead them, to help them unlock the next phase of their grand design. And she wasn't sure if she could refuse them. She turned to Adam, who was staring at her, confusion and fear etched in his expression. I think I understand now, Adam. The Nexus, it's not just a place. It's a process. It's a point of convergence where everything changes, where all the power we've been tapping into comes together. We're the key, Adam. We're meant to lead this. Adam took a step back, his hands raised in protest. No, Ellen. You're not hearing it. They're using you. You're becoming what they want you to be. Don't you see? They don't care about us. They just want to reshape everything in their image. That's the truth. Ellen's chest tightened. She could hear the desperation in Adam's voice, the fear that was consuming him. He didn't understand. He couldn't understand. Not yet. Not unless he experienced it too. And then, as if on cue, the ground beneath them trembled again. This time, it was not just a shift. It was a violent, deep quake that rattled the air and sent a wave of dust and debris into the sky. The sky above them flickered with energy, and the terraformers began to move faster, their cloaked figures gliding across the horizon like shadows. We're not alone anymore, Ellen whispered, her voice barely audible over the rumble of the planet's shifting surface. The Nexus is calling us. It's time. Adam's eyes filled with dread as the ground cracked open beneath them, a glowing, blinding light spilling forth. And as the light grew, they both knew the choice had arrived. The terraformers had been preparing for this moment, and so had Ellen. She stepped forward, her body humming with energy, and she felt the pull of the Nexus, deep within her. It was a point of no return. The moment had come. You have chosen, Ellen. The future is yours to reshape. The ground cracked open beneath Ellen and Adam, a rift of light and power splitting the earth wide. The rumble of the planet's upheaval reverberated in their bones as the air around them grew thick with energy. The blinding light that poured from the fissure was like nothing Ellen had ever seen, a swirling, almost liquid radiance that seemed to warp reality itself. Ellen, what are you doing? Adam's voice was raw, filled with fear and panic. He grabbed her arm desperately, trying to pull her back from the edge of the rift. But Ellen couldn't move. She couldn't even think of moving. There was something pulling her, something in the light, in the very air itself, that called to her with an almost primal urgency. She could feel the power inside her, humming in perfect resonance with the Nexus. It was as if every part of her body, her mind, her very soul, was vibrating with the rhythm of the universe. The terraformers, their figures still obscured by their cloaks, had stopped moving. They stood at the edges of the rift, watching, observing. The air was heavy with their presence, as if they were waiting for Ellen to make the final choice. Ellen's heart pounded in her chest as her thoughts raced. What had they been preparing for? What was this Nexus, and what role was she meant to play in it? She could feel the answer inside her, like a secret she couldn't quite grasp. The power inside her was not just hers. It was part of something larger, something cosmic, something beyond the planet's surface. And yet, a small part of her still hesitated. Ellen, Adam's voice broke through her thoughts again, raw and desperate. Please, don't do this. I don't care what they want us to become. We can still escape. We can still find a way back home. But Ellen didn't know if she could. The more she thought about it, the more she realized she didn't want to. Not anymore. This isn't about Earth anymore, she said softly, more to herself than to Adam. This is bigger than us. Bigger than Earth. Adam's eyes widened with horror. You're not serious? You want to join them? You want to become one of them? Ellen's gaze softened, but the decision had already been made. She didn't know if it was the power inside her, or the pull of the Nexus, or if the terraformers had somehow pushed her this far, but she knew that her path lay forward. It lay in the light. I'm not becoming one of them, she said quietly. I'm becoming something new, something that will change everything. With that, Ellen stepped forward, her bare feet finding purchase on the edge of the rift. The light reached up to meet her, wrapping around her like a wave of pure energy. It felt as though she was dissolving into it, becoming one with the power. The force pulsed through her, expanding her senses until she could feel the fabric of the universe itself, stretching and bending beneath her touch. Time slowed. Reality wavered. The very concept of existence seemed to bend and twist around her as the Nexus opened fully. The terraformers, silent and distant, began to move again, their shapes flickering in and out of view as though they existed on multiple planes of reality. They surrounded the rift, their cloaked figures becoming part of the swirling light, as if they were conducting an ancient, otherworldly ritual. You have chosen, Ellen, came the cold, echoing voice of the terraformers. You will shape the future of the cosmos. Your transformation has begun. Ellen could feel the weight of those words sink deep into her mind. She was not simply a participant in this experiment. She was the catalyst, the bridge between the old world and a new, unimaginable future. Ellen, Adam's voice reached her once more, but it was faint, as if it were coming from a distance. Please, I don't want this for you. You can still stop this. You can still come back. But Ellen couldn't turn back now. The power, the light, it was too much. It flowed through her like an endless river, and she was being swept along with it. Every inch of her being was alive with energy, alive with purpose. The Nexus had connected her to something ancient, something beyond comprehension, and she was its conduit. She felt her body change. It wasn't just the physical transformation, The glowing tattoos that had appeared on her skin, the heightened senses, the strange, pulsing energy that coursed through her veins. It was something deeper, something mental and spiritual. Her thoughts became clearer, sharper. She could feel the presence of the terraformers around her, could hear their thoughts in her mind, as if they were speaking directly to her essence. "You are ready," the voice echoed. "The Nexus has granted you the power to reshape the world, to rebuild what has been broken. You are the future." And then, it all became clear. Ellen was not just a subject. She was the key to unlocking the terraformers' grand design. The Nexus was not merely a place. It was a point of convergence, a tool that would allow the terraformers to transcend their limitations and reshape the universe. But it needed a guide. It needed a being capable of wielding its immense power. Ellen was that guide. Her mind expanded, and she saw visions of stars collapsing, galaxies reforming, entire worlds being shaped and remade. She saw the terraformers, not as alien beings, but as part of a larger, cosmic order, part of a plan that spanned the very fabric of existence. And at the center of it all, she saw herself. She was the center. She was the fulcrum upon which the future of the universe would turn. "Now, you must choose," the voice said. "What will you do with this power? Will you reshape the universe, as we have done before? Or will you create something entirely new?" Ellen closed her eyes. She could feel Adam's presence, still tethered to her by the invisible thread of their shared humanity. But she knew what needed to be done. She would not be a tool of the terraformers. She would not be a mere pawn in their game. She would become something new, something beyond the boundaries of the Nexus. And she would decide what the future would look like. The world around her shifted again, and the terraformers faded into the light, becoming one with the power of the Nexus. They were waiting, but so was Ellen, waiting to take the first step into a new era. The future was in her hands. The next phase had begun. The Nexus pulsed with power, an ever-present hum that resonated through the very fabric of Ellen's being. Her thoughts were sharp, clearer than they had ever been. She could feel every molecule of air around her, the subtle shifts in the atmosphere. She was aware of every movement, every change in the landscape, every tremor of the planet. The Nexus had become part of her, and she had become part of it. In the distance, the terraformers watched in silence, their cloaked figures barely distinguishable from the swirling energy. They no longer spoke to her directly, but their presence was overwhelming, an undeniable weight pressing down on her. They were waiting for her to act, waiting for her to make the final decision. And yet, Ellen felt no fear, only clarity. Her mind had expanded, but the more she understood, the more she realized that the Nexus was not just a power, it was a test. A test of creation, of what could be built from the raw potential that now coursed through her. The terraformers had reshaped countless worlds, but they were limited. Their vision was confined to a single path: control, order, and progress by their own design. But Ellen, she could see more. She could see the possibility of creating something entirely new, something beyond what the terraformers had imagined. She looked back at Adam, still standing near the edge of the rift, his expression a mix of fear and desperation. He hadn't moved since she stepped into the light, and his gaze never left her. She could feel his worry, the pull of his emotions, a stark contrast to the powerful calm that flowed through her. "Ellen," Adam called out, his voice shaking. "Please, don't do this. You don't have to be like them. You can still stop it. We can still leave together. We can fight back." Ellen's chest tightened at his words. She could feel the weight of his plea, the bond they had shared from the moment they were first brought to Exel, Theris. She knew his heart, knew his desire to return home, to escape this twisted experiment. But she also knew that his fear was blinding him. He couldn't see what she could see. He couldn't feel the power that surged through her, the potential that had unlocked inside her as the Nexus unfolded. She could feel herself growing apart from him, though the connection between them remained. The rift between them had always been there, but now it was more profound. Adam had wanted to survive. Ellen had wanted to survive, too. But now she understood that survival was not the goal. Transformation was. Evolution was. I can't go back, Adam, she said softly, her voice echoing through the windless air. I can't fight this. It's not about fighting anymore. It's about creating something new. I can reshape the future. The terraformers, they were right about one thing. This world, this universe, is broken. But I can fix it. I can make it better. I can. Her words trailed off as the power surged through her again, an overwhelming wave of light and energy that wrapped around her like an embrace. She could feel the potential of the entire cosmos inside her. Each galaxy, each star, each living being, all part of an intricate web of possibility. The Nexus had opened her mind to everything. The interconnectedness of all things, the delicate balance between chaos and order, creation and destruction. But with that understanding came a burden. The choice. The terraformers had shaped worlds. They had imposed their vision, their order, on countless planets. They had decided the fate of the universe in their own image. Ellen was different. She could feel the power to reshape reality itself, to give birth to new worlds, new forms of life, new ways of existence. But there was a cost. The Nexus offered her creation, but it also demanded sacrifice. It demanded the destruction of what came before, the erasure of what was. Ellen, please. Adam's voice cracked. He was standing closer now, his eyes wide with panic. This isn't you. You're not one of them. You're human. You have to be. But Ellen only shook her head. She had felt the shift, the moment she had crossed the threshold and stepped into the Nexus. She was no longer just human. She was something else, something beyond. She could feel the weight of all the possibilities in front of her, and she knew what she had to do. The terraformers had created, but they had done so without empathy. Without vision, they sought to impose a rigid structure, a singular way of being. But Ellen could do more. She could bring choice to the universe. She could bring freedom. She stepped forward, the light from the rift growing brighter around her. The energy pulsed with the force of 1,000 storms. She could feel the terraformers watching, their presence a heavy shadow over her. But she was no longer afraid of them. They had already made their choice. Now, it was her turn. What will you create? The voice of the Nexus whispered in her mind, deep and resonant. Ellen closed her eyes and let the power flow through her. She had the ability to reshape everything, every atom, every particle, every piece of existence. She could create new life, new worlds, new futures. The terraformers had taken it upon themselves to shape the universe according to their own cold vision, but Ellen could do more. She could allow the universe to shape itself. She could give it the freedom to evolve, to adapt, to grow in ways unimaginable. I will create, she thought, her voice a silent declaration that echoed through the very heart of the Nexus. A universe where every being can choose. A universe where creation is not dictated by one hand, but by many. A universe of freedom and possibility. And as she spoke that thought into existence, the light around her flared, and she felt the power surge in a way she had never experienced before. The Nexus responded. The very fabric of reality rippled, as though the universe itself were shifting to accommodate her will. The terraformers stood motionless, their cloaks billowing in the strange, swirling energy. They had been waiting for her to make a decision, but the decision she made was not one they had anticipated. She had not chosen to bend the universe to their will. Instead, she had chosen to release it, to give it room to breathe, to grow, to evolve. The planet, Exel, Theris, began to change again. The atmosphere grew calmer, less hostile. The wind slowed, and the sky shifted from its unnatural, sickly hue to a soft, golden warmth. The ground, once jagged and broken, began to smooth out, as though the planet itself was taking a deep, soothing breath. The terraformers watched, but this time, their gaze was filled with uncertainty. They hadn't expected this. They hadn't expected her to break their mold. And yet, Ellen knew she had only just begun. The future was hers to create, not just for herself, but for every living being that would come after her. She had made her choice. Now, She would guide the universe into a new era, one of infinite possibility. You have chosen creation. The universe is yours to shape, Ellen. The future is in your hands. The Nexus pulsed again, and with it, the beginning of a new age. The light of the Nexus flared one final time, then began to dissipate, leaving the world in a gentle, golden glow. The energy that had surged through Ellen's body now felt as though it had integrated into her very essence, no longer an external force, but a part of her, as if she had always been meant to wield it. The power wasn't overwhelming anymore. It was familiar, comforting, even. It had become a part of her identity. The terraformers stood motionless in the distance, their once imposing figures now shadowed by the shifting light. They had been waiting for her to conform to their vision of the universe, waiting for her to step into line with their cold, calculating methods of control and order. But now, they were uncertain. The future was not in their hands. It was in hers. Ellen turned away from the rift, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she took a deep breath. The air on Exel, Theris felt different, cleaner, more vibrant. The planet, which had once seemed like a harsh, alien world, now felt alive in a way that was entirely new. It was as though it, too, was evolving alongside her. Adam was still standing at the edge of the rift, his face pale, his body stiff with tension. He had witnessed everything, but he hadn't understood. He couldn't. The burden of creation, of shaping the future, was not something he could comprehend, not yet, anyway. But that didn't mean Ellen had lost her connection to him. She could feel the bond they had shared, stronger now, but tinged with sadness, as if the gulf between them had grown wider in the space of just a few moments. Ellen took a step toward him, her bare feet making no sound on the softening ground. She wanted to reach him, to explain, to make him understand. But the truth was, she didn't have the answers yet. She was still figuring it out, still learning what it meant to have this kind of power. "I know you don't understand," Ellen said, her voice calm but heavy with the weight of what had just transpired. "I know this isn't what you wanted for me, but this is who I am now, and this is who I'm meant to be. The future isn't just something we survive. It's something we create." Adam didn't respond at first. His face was tight with emotion, his gaze flickering from her to the now still rift in the ground. It was as if he was trying to process everything that had happened, trying to find a way to make sense of the changes that had taken place, not just in Ellen, but in the world around them. You're different," Adam finally said, his voice breaking through the silence between them. "I can see that, but you're not the person I knew. I don't recognize you anymore, Ellen." The words struck her harder than she had expected. She had thought she was prepared for this, had anticipated it, even. She knew that the bond they had shared, the bond of humans in an alien world, was not something that could easily withstand such profound change. But hearing him say it, seeing the hurt in his eyes, made her realize how deeply their connection had been tested. "I'm still me, Adam," Ellen said softly, stepping closer. "I'm just more than I was, more than anyone could have imagined. And I'm still me." Her words wavered, unsure for the first time, but she pressed on. "But I'm not the only one who's changed. Look at the world around you. Look at Exel, Theris. It's not the same place. The universe is not the same anymore." Adam's eyes moved slowly across the landscape. The planet had undergone a transformation. The jagged, unstable terrain had smoothed, and a new sky, clear and serene, now stretched above them. Even the distant horizon seemed to shimmer with the promise of new life. The air was no longer toxic or oppressive. It was breathable, rich with potential. The terraformers' work, Ellen realized, had always been about control, but her power was about freedom. "This is what I've chosen," she said, turning her gaze back to him. "A universe where we don't just survive, but where we create. Where every being, every world, every possibility is free to evolve, to choose its own path." The terraformers, what they've been doing, how they've tried to impose their will on everything, this isn't the way. Not anymore. Adam stepped back, looking at her with a mixture of awe and fear. So you're saying, you're going to change everything? The universe? You think you can just remake everything? I don't think, Ellen replied, her voice steady, confident. I know I can. At that moment, the terraformers moved. They approached in unison, their cloaked forms becoming clearer, more defined as they came closer. The light of the Nexus still shimmered in the air around them, but now, they seemed almost subdued. The power that had once felt like a weapon now seemed like a tool, one that they were no longer the masters of. Ellen turned toward them, her stance unyielding. She could feel their presence, their gaze upon her, but this time, it felt different. She had been their experiment, their subject, but now she was the one who held the power. She was the one who had crossed into a new reality. You've seen it, haven't you? Ellen's voice echoed, carrying a weight of finality. You've watched the world evolve, and you've seen how the future is shaped. But you've missed the most important part. The choice. It's not just about imposing your vision on the universe. It's about letting the universe decide what it wants to become. The terraformers were silent for a moment, their forms flickering like shadows. Finally, one of them spoke, its voice calm but laden with a strange sense of reverence. You have surpassed us, it said simply. We did not expect this, but we see now. You are right. The universe is not meant to be shaped by a single hand. It is meant to evolve by many. Perhaps, in time, we will learn from you. Ellen's heart swelled with an emotion she hadn't anticipated, hope. The terraformers, who had once been so sure of their absolute control, were acknowledging her power, her vision. They were not enemies, not anymore. They were simply another step in the grand design of the universe. And she could choose to guide them, to help them see the possibilities they had missed. The future is not mine to control alone, Ellen said, her voice filled with newfound purpose. But it is mine to help shape. Together, we will create a universe of infinite possibilities. A universe where freedom is not just an ideal, but a reality. And as the terraformers slowly knelt in acknowledgement, Ellen realized that the real work had only just begun. She had unlocked the potential of the universe, but now it was time to teach it how to grow. To teach it how to evolve in harmony, not by force, but by choice. And for the first time since arriving on Exel, Theris, she felt at peace. The universe was hers to shape, and its future was no longer written in stone. The dawn of possibility had begun. The world of Exel, Theris had become a canvas, stretching infinitely before Ellen's eyes. No longer a barren, unstable planet, it was now a living, breathing testament to the possibilities that lay within the universe, shaped not by a single hand, but by the collective will of all that existed. The terraformers, standing now as equals rather than masters, had slowly begun to understand. They were no longer the architects of this new age. They were guides, students, even allies in the work of transformation. But the true power, the heart of creation, lay with Ellen. As she stood on the soft, new earth of Exel, Theris, Ellen's connection to the Nexus pulsed through her veins, a hum that resonated with every atom in the air, every leaf that swayed, every cloud that drifted lazily across the sky. The air was rich with the promise of life, as though the planet itself had finally exhaled, freed from the constraints of an imposed order. Behind her, Adam still stood, silent. He had not moved much since the transformation. His eyes, however, told a different story, filled with awe, uncertainty, and the shadows of a deep, inner struggle. He was not the same person he had been before, just as Ellen was no longer the woman who had been taken from Earth. Neither of them could be. But there was still the bond between them, fragile though it was. It was now something that needed to be redefined, not by old notions of survival or escape, but by a new vision. You've changed everything, Adam said quietly, his voice breaking through the quiet of the landscape. His words were not an accusation, but a simple fact. His eyes met hers, searching for something, an understanding, perhaps, of the choice she had made. What happens now? What do we do with all of this power? Ellen didn't hesitate. Now, we create. The terraformers, whose presence had been little more than a looming shadow in the beginning, now stood beside her. One of them, the leader, stepped forward and lowered its hood. The figure was humanoid in shape, but its features were not easily recognizable. Its face was like a shifting tapestry, constantly changing, flickering between forms. The same flicker that had once felt threatening now felt like a mirror. "You have reshaped not just this world," the leader said, its voice calm, yet heavy with respect, "but the very fabric of the universe itself. We are at the precipice of something none of us have ever imagined." Ellen nodded, her gaze turning back to the horizon. The sky had turned a shade of deep violet, swirling with faint, shimmering constellations that she had not seen before. Stars that had once seemed far away were now close, as if they, too, were waiting for her to unlock their secrets. The Nexus had not just changed Exel, Theris, it had opened the universe itself. "Exel, Theris is only the beginning," Ellen replied, her voice filled with a quiet certainty. "The power we've unlocked, the freedom we've allowed to grow here, can spread to every corner of the cosmos. We're not just changing planets. We're changing the very way life is. We're giving every living thing the freedom to choose how it evolves." "But how?" Adam asked, his brow furrowing in doubt. "How do we guide it? The universe is vast, Ellen. You can't just will everything into existence. It's too big. It's too chaotic." Ellen finished for him. "Yes, it's chaotic. But that's the beauty of it. We've always tried to control it, to force order where it didn't belong. The terraformers, the humans, everyone, we've all tried to impose our will on it, to shape it like clay. But the true potential lies in freedom. Chaos isn't something to be controlled. It's something to be nurtured, guided with care, until it finds its own shape." Adam opened his mouth to speak, but Ellen held up her hand. She knew what he was going to say. He would ask how she could trust the universe to take shape on its own. He would ask how she could let go of the old ways, the ways they had both survived by for so long. But she had already seen the answer. She had felt it in the power of the Nexus, in the pulse of the universe itself. There was no need for control, only guidance, only care, and that was something she could do. "What happens when we let the universe choose?" Ellen asked, her voice soft but determined. "We allow everything to evolve, not as we want it, but as it should be. Life will adapt, it will grow, and in that growth, it will find its own path." Adam was silent for a moment, clearly grappling with her words. He was a survivor. He had been focused on getting back to Earth, on escaping the nightmare of the terraformers' experiments. Now, that escape seemed almost irrelevant. His entire worldview had been shaken, just as hers had. "I don't know if I can see it yet," Adam admitted, his voice quiet. "But if you believe it, Ellen, I'll follow." The weight of his words hung in the air, heavy with the unspoken promise. It was a new kind of connection, one born not of shared survival or fear, but of shared purpose, a purpose that stretched beyond the boundaries of Exel, Theris, beyond even the stars themselves. And for the first time since they had landed on this strange world, Ellen felt a sense of peace settle over her. They had a long road ahead of them. She would need to guide the terraformers, teach them what she had learned from the Nexus. They would help her spread this vision of creation, but the true work would come from the beings of the universe themselves. Life, in all its forms, would choose its path. The terraformers, standing in a quiet circle around her, had become more than just silent observers. They were her allies, her collaborators. And she realized, as she looked into their flickering faces, that they too had been changed by the events on Exel, Theris. They had seen a different path, one that was not about dominance but about nurturing the potential of all things. The world around them continued to evolve. The sky shifted again, this time deepening into the rich colors of twilight, while strange plants began to bloom. Softly glowing flowers that opened like eyes, gazing up at the stars. The planet was alive now, truly alive. And it was only the beginning. Ellen took a deep breath, the air now pure and full of the scent of new life. She could feel the pulse of the universe in her very bones, A hum that connected everything, every living being, every piece of matter. She was no longer just a test subject, no longer just a survivor. She was something new, something larger, and as she gazed up at the infinite horizon, she knew that her work was just beginning. The universe was vast, and its possibilities were endless. But the future was no longer determined by chance, or by control. It was determined by choice. The universe was free, and now, it was up to all of them to see what it would become. The future is unwritten, and it begins with us.